You are listening to the Yummy Mummy Podcast, episode number 187.
Welcome to the Yummy Mummy Podcast, where you will learn brand new and shockingly different tools to lose weight for the last time. And now, here's your host, certified life and weight loss coach, Laura Conley.
Hello, Yum Mums. What is going on? Before I introduce my guest, which this episode is going to be so amazing. You're going to get so much out of it. But before we do that, I want to make sure that you are signed up for the Summer of Me, the free challenge. We are already a day and a half in, but you are not too late. So go to lauraconley.com/summer if you want to join the challenge. We can get you caught up super fast. That is, if you're listening to this the day that it is coming out, which is, I think, June 11th. So the challenge is June 10th to June 14th, all about the Summer of Me. You are going to walk away with your weight loss plan, the confidence to follow through, a little extra pep in your step. This is the summer, babes. This is the summer that we are going for. Okay. That's that. lauraconley.com/summer. Let's go. Okay. So my friend Sarah Ezrin is here. I am so excited that she is here. We used to teach yoga together like way back in the day in LA. I remember seeing you all the time at like Yoga Works Westwood. And now we have just journeyed on and evolved. So welcome to the podcast, Sarah. Introduce yourself to us. Tell us what you're up to. What do you do? Who you help? What you got kids? Just tell us the scoop.
I think that's what helped us kind of find our true path, right? It's like, it's not that like motherhood is our own one and only, and that's what we're going to talk about. That's not our only box. But in that journey into motherhood, both of you and I were like, oh, I think we want to help other moms. And maybe it's that we're helping other moms like have so much more than just the motherhood box. So yes, I am the author of The Yoga of Parenting. I have been teaching mindful movement for 16 years. And I remember the day that Brian took my class and he's like, I'm Laura's husband. It was like the bubbliest, nicest man. I'm like, who are these people? And this was like, I grew up in LA, right? So it was like, I was like a little skeptical. I'm like, these people are very nice. Everybody's being nice. They must be talking behind my back. Why is she smiling all the time? Like, I was not sure. And then I realized, oh my goodness, like this was your and by the way, I'm not knocking LA. I love LA. It was just, you grew up in a big city. You're like always weary, right? And I was like, wow, these people are genuinely the kindest, sweetest, most like apple pie.
That's so good.
An amazing, amazing yoga teacher. So Laura and I, we came up together a long time ago. I have always been writing alongside of that. I write for Yoga Journal, Well and Good, Motherly, Healthline, all those things. And then finally, after a very difficult first postpartum experience, I wrote my first book. And now I have been launched into, I'm 2 kids later, I am launched into helping empower other moms. I'm just so clear on that. I do maternal mental health advocacy work, but I actually, you'll be proud of this, Laura. I just sent out like an APB today because I'm starting to do pelvic health. Like I'm starting to own I've been training for a while now, but I'm starting to own like, okay, I'm a postpartum mobility specialist. I'm a pelvic health specialist. So that's cool.
That is so needed. Oh my gosh. That is so needed here because
stop peeing ourselves, please. Yes.
Oh my God, I know. I can finally jump on the trampoline and most of the time don't pee. Most of the time. Tell us a little bit about your book. I can see it in the background and I just want to hear about it. So tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, my book. Okay, so the full title is The Yoga of Parenting, 10 yoga-based practices to help you stay grounded. That's highlighted, right? Stay grounded, connect with your kids. And then what I think is the most important, especially for mothers, is to be kind to ourselves. And that was a big part of the inspiration in writing the book. So I had my son December of 2019, my first son, meaning just before the COVID shutdowns. I did have my brother nearby, but he also had a 1-year-old. So he was like in a soup of his own madness. And so we were out to sea. We weren't near Ben's family. My sister was still in LA at the time. We were very lost. Never mind just the anxiety of living in the unknown of a pandemic. And plus I already have generalized anxiety disorder. I had a very, very difficult birth, including a 4th-degree tear. It was just all of this confluence. So it led to postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression. And yoga, like the movement practice, just wasn't doing it for me in the same way. First of all, my body I don't know, maybe it was that I didn't want to get still in that way, but I needed something more. I needed something deeper. And so then I
Mm.
went into like, okay, well, let's go into the self-study of it, right? Like, let's
Mm.
read some texts and let's read some books. But in this case, in the yoga world, we'd be reading like wisdom texts. But in
Yeah.
this case, I was reading parenting books, just like all the time, voraciously. And every single one made me feel worse about myself.
Yep.
It was like, if you don't follow this prescription, your child will be in therapy starting at 10 years old. Or there was like these people who would share the stories. They were the leaders and how they like healed people in one session. And then I found Mindful Parenting, which is
Mm.
an awesome sect of books, but it's
Mm.
all Buddhist influenced.
Mm.
So yes, it's like it is that more like spiritual type parenting, but
Mm.
all of it comes from the Buddhist perspective. And I was like, well, where's the yoga book of it all? Like, where's
Yeah.
our language? Where's using the body as a
Mm.
gateway to tap into these places inside of us? And as we know now, especially with trauma-informed work, like bottom-up approach is probably the most effective for healing. And so that's when I started to deep dive into it. I was able to move my body again. I was starting to couple it with other deeper practices and yoga off the mat.
Mm.
And it just led to this beautiful book. So the book is 10 practical practices.
Mhm.
Each chapter has a pose, a
Mm.
cool story by like parents, many of the parents I interviewed in there. Because that was the other thing is like, I didn't feel like I was like a parenting expert by any means. So I
Mm.
was like, I need to go to other parents. Like,
Mhm.
how can I write a parenting book? And all I have is like one kid and it's been a bit of a disaster so far. But what I realized is in interviewing all of them, like none of us have any idea what's going on. Even the grandparents are still like winging it. And to trust ourselves, like to come into that trust. So it's like
Mm.
every chapter's got the pose, which is going to
Mhm.
help us with a certain principle, whether it's like
Mm.
how to find balance, how to find
Mm.
freedom, how to not
Cool.
attach. And then the story, everything has one story about someone, all very interesting stories and interesting interviews. And then breath breaks and everything. And then like an invitation, a very simple invitation for us to
Mm.
bring the work into our own family.
Mm.
So it's really practical. There's a lot of my story in there too. I was reluctant to share that, but it gets quite personal. And I think that that's how we learn best. It's like multimodal, right? Like it's all
Mm.
these different ways of learning.
Yeah, totally. Because what works for one season doesn't always work for the next season, like you're saying. So, can you give us an example of one of the practices or one of the invitations?
Yeah, my favorite one, and the one I actually get a lot of feedback on it. So one of the chapters is on non-attachment, right?
Mm.
In yoga, we talk about this principle of abhyasa and vairagya, which
Mhm.
is diligent practice, like working super hard at something and then letting go of any attachment to the results of it. And we often
Mm.
talk about like they're described as two oars for a boat or two wings of a bird. Like you need both in order to have forward momentum.
Mm.
Most of us tend towards one side of the spectrum. Most of us are either super hard workers, but also very gripped and attached to the results of it. Like you and I making eye contact right now. Other people are more towards the other end where it's like, oh, very airy-fairy, loosey-goosey, like whatever happens, happens, and very permissive. And I know people like that. I don't relate to it necessarily, but I wanted to write to the other A-type moms out there. And
Mhm.
especially, I think it's just motherhood in America. We have this
Mhm.
pressure on us, like the ideal mother in America,
Mm.
that we can actually bring in a little bit more of that looseness. Not to say
Mhm.
that we stop working hard, but let's like, how do we focus in on the looseness?
Mhm.
So the practice is, it's inspired by Rai parenting, but it's not the same. It's
Mhm.
just about sitting back and observing your family for 20 minutes. For 20
Ooh.
minutes. And obviously, if you have a newborn, like this is, will need to be like 2 minutes,
2
but
minutes, yeah.
you just sit back and you not intervening. They're going to come to you and ask for help. And like, obviously you can interact with them, but can
Are
you
you,
not
like, reading a
intervene?
book right now, or you're just, like, really observing?
No,
Like,
when
when
you're really
you
observing. Yeah, you're not on your phone. You're just watching them.
Oh my gosh. That's so
And
cool.
it's just the most beautiful practice. And like, and also watching them figure things out, you know? And you and I were just
Mm.
talking about the sibling dynamic. And in the green room and just giving them the space to figure that out. And obviously they're going to come to you and they're going to ask for things, but it's like, can we be with them fully, not folding the laundry, not trying to answer emails on our phone, not refereeing, not cooking, just observing this beautiful life that we've created. It's a wonderful practice of non-attachment. It's often easier to do like in settings like a playground or somewhere where, they're not just like
where the dishes aren't staring at you.
Yeah. And they're not waiting for you to be their play toy, right? Because even though that happens at parks for me all the time still.
Of course. Yeah. No, I know. Can you
But
me?
There's just something about like backing up and taking yourself out of it and just watching and just being there.
So you said we could do it for 2 minutes. Like, can we sidestep into this? Like, can we do 5 minutes and work up to 20 minutes?
Of course.
That would have to be me. But okay, so then if they come over to you, like, do you engage?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're not like a statue.
Okay.
But
I'm like, how do I do this right, Sarah? I'm a type A, okay? I need to get an A+.
You got to first let the hands, loosen the hands, work at like loosening the hands up, shake your body out. They're going to come over and they're going to ask for help. And then you can ask back like a question and be like, well, have you tried this? Like, what have you tried? And why don't you go talk to your sibling about that? You can try and figure that out. And just bringing invitations back to them to also be in a place of observation. So I call it like, it's like your anthropological study of your family. Like you're like in the wild observing, right? So you want to be a little quieter. You want to be removed. Sometimes you can be doing things so it looks like you're distracted, but obviously you're really paying attention. So I think folding laundry and things like that is valid. You're not watching Netflix Love is Blind. Not that there's anything wrong with that show, but like that's not happening in that moment.
Yeah, got it. I think that's so cool. I love what you said. You were like, you just sit back and you observe like this beautiful life, because my clients will tell me this all the time. They're like, I had built a beautiful life and it looked like a beautiful life, like on paper, but I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't having a beautiful experience. It sucked. I was tired. I felt out of control, whatever. And it's like, it actually probably already is way more beautiful than you think it is if you just like give yourself permission to like stop and observe, which can feel like, again, for people that are like me, and maybe it's really uncomfortable. Like I've been playing with the mantra right now, like it's safe to relax. Like I am safe to relax, which sounds actually so silly to me.
No.
I have to say that, right? But it's like I've gotten a little bit addicted to check boxes, checking the boxes, like the laundry and so like you just giving us this invitation and permission is so fun. And I might put it on my to-do list and I don't care. Like it might actually be something on there so that I can give myself the box so that I could trick myself in, and I'm okay with that.
Some of us have to like schedule the day that you're not online, right? We have to schedule in the rest period. I think that's understandable. And yes, you can't expect all or nothing, right? I mean, you talk to people about changing habits all the time. But I do also think that a thread I'd like to pull from what you said was this idea of like, we had a beautiful life on the outside, but it wasn't feeling beautiful on the inside. And that's when we have to go to another practice, which is like, well, what are your priorities, right? Is it really about looking beautiful on the outside? Can you let certain balls drop? And again, that is that non-attachment. Maybe it's not the sitting back, like literally sitting back and watching the kids play. Maybe it's the sitting back and letting the dishes pile up that day, letting the laundry basket sit there unfolded, letting your kid leave the house with his pants backwards, letting yourself not wash your face for a day, prioritizing our mental health so that, because it does become this show after a while, it starts to become performative. And we lose the purpose of it. We lose, which is the connection piece, which is what the yoga is, right? Like,
we lose the plot. And I think that's where the mantra comes back in too. Like it's safe for me to let the dishes pile up. It's safe for me to let my kid go to school with no underwear, which my kid is into lately. Anyways, there's a whole story there. I won't go into it, but he didn't wear underwear and then he had a hole in his crotch and we got a call. Anyways, and I'm fine with it. I'm totally fine because I am not type A. I don't identify as type A anymore. But I think what you bring up is really important too, because just in the weight loss space, It's really hard to teach non-attachment, and I do teach non-attachment. That's like a huge part of why the Yummy Mommy method works, is because we're focused a little bit more on the process, because so many of my clients come in and they've been so focused on the goal, like they want to hit their dream weight or their dream whatever size, and we have to like loosen the grip, right? There can be that commitment to health and what they want to create, but it's about the process. It's about the like letting go of the attachment and really knowing that a certain weight or a certain way your life looks on the outside actually doesn't mean anything necessarily about you. That's not how you earn your worth. I mean, we could talk about this within motherhood too, and like the ideal mom and motherhood in America. And it's like so many of us are striving for perfection, which number one is a lie.
Mm.
Number two, we just feel like ass the whole time anyway. So let's try a new way. Let's try just for like a week not being attached and like letting it go, and to your point, like observing and hanging back, stepping back just to see like what that might be like.
And remembering that it's the two sides to the coin. It's the
Yes.
two wings to the bird. It's the two oars. It's
Mm.
both. It's not saying that we just let everything become
Yeah.
messy and that we're like everything's going to fall apart. It's finding the balance and that everything exists on a spectrum. So you
Mm.
can still, I can't remember who said it. It was Carlos Castaneda. It was like something like treat something like it's the most important thing in the world, but also like it doesn't matter at all. But can you
So
imagine applying that to our kids?
yeah, ooh.
And that's hard for people
Mm.
because a lot of us define ourselves by our roles a lot. And there are a lot of people out there that had their children and they feel like that is their purpose. And I'm not knocking that in any
Yeah.
way. But in my family, my children are not my prime purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are
Same.
beautiful, amazing, God given, blessed souls that are staying with me temporarily
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
guests,
Yeah.
and that we will continue to have a wonderful relationship with
Mm.
throughout their lives. God willing, I live long enough to see them grow into adulthood, but they are not my sole purpose.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much there. So just going back a second, then I want to talk about that. It's like the way that I talk about it too is like can't like the two oars, and I like that metaphor because I always
Mm.
like to paint a picture. The two oars are the two wings. I have had a history of been so focused on the goal, like that one oar verse, and I had in the past. It's still a practice for me, as it is probably most people who've given up that type A life or perfectionism or whatever you want to call it. It's like for me, the balance is like commitment. It's exactly like what you said. It's like, can it mean everything to you and also nothing? And it's so much more spacious that way. And it's
Mm.
so much more fun also. Like
Yeah.
it's just way more fun when we're not attached to like every single outcome.
And maybe it's not saying like real quick, because especially when it comes to
Yeah.
people we love, it's hard to say like it doesn't mean anything because it does mean something and it's different. Like in Al Anon, which is a program I'm a part of, which is for friends and family of alcoholics, we talk about detaching with love. I think it's more that. It's
Mhm.
that you absolutely pour your love into something, but you also like you've got to leave space for that thing to become whatever that
Yeah.
it's meant to be. You pour yourself into your kids, you show up for them, you do the absolute best that you can, but then you got to trust that like they're on their own path.
Yeah.
You and
That's
I
what
would
it
say it
is.
from yoga. It's like they have their own karma,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do the best that I can to prepare them, but ultimately they're launching onto their own paths, and
Mhm.
I'm going to be there. I'll be on the sidelines cheering, but I'm not going to be like raking and scraping and macheting paths open for them for the rest of
Mhm.
their life. It's just not possible, and it's not sustainable for us and our own mental health.
And it's not our job.
Yeah.
Like, I just think we got the assignment wrong. I mean, when it comes to really like any goal, and that's what you're speaking to, it's really like not our business, like some of it. And I think it's so hard to release that grip when it comes to motherhood and parenting, and when it comes to weight loss and health goals. Like, it's like what you're talking about, I think, is like, again, it's that balance and it's finding that line of like, what is my role or what is my business and what's not my business. And I think it can get so muddy. But anyways,
I mean, speaking of
go
the
ahead.
weight loss of it all, I just want to share because I think this is important. Yesterday, I'm going to a black tie 40th birthday party, which is very exciting and great. So I was like, oh, I'm going to put it on, I'm going to try on my old dresses.
Yes.
Right? My rib cage has changed. Like, yes, I have some, can I say boobies from having babies? Like, and I only just finished breastfeeding recently. But like, I can't control my bones.
Yes.
I had to have my wedding ring cut off 2 weeks ago, you guys. I can't control my bones.
Yeah.
I can eat. I eat super cleanly. I work out multiple times throughout the week. I am kind to myself. I rest. I prioritize sleep. I drink loads of water. I do all the things and my freaking bones are going to change.
Yeah.
So it's like we show up and we do the absolute best that we can. And then there's just parts that like, I'm 42, dude. Like my body's changing. I've had 2 kids.
It's like what you can control and what you can't control, right? And it's like we just forget a lot of the time that so much is out of our control. And it's actually so freeing when we learn what we're in control of and what we're not in control of. Like it actually, I think for some of us, it can feel really unsafe or scary.
Yes.
To loosen that grip and let go of control. But like on the other side really is freedom. So much freedom.
Yeah. And I mean, and not to like psychoanalyze like your listeners, because I don't know anybody yet, but it's like, it is worth looking into, right? Like I know my history. I know why I need to control everything all the time. I grew up in an alcoholic home. Nothing was settled in this home. You didn't know whose mood was going to be what was up, what was down. The floor was constantly changing. There was a thread of love, but that then translated into decades-long eating disorders, drug and in alcohol abuse for myself. And then later, what was functional, which was A-type personality, perfectionism, and overachievement. But now I've learned through my somatic work and through therapy, it's like, oh, well, that actually was like that those were defenses. That was just another drug. Yeah, it really was. And the loosening up. And I love what you say about like when you can come to that place of like knowing it's totally out of your control. And I think motherhood blows that wide open, by the way. I think motherhood and change and aging are 2 things that really show you, because you can believe in your 20s that you have control over everything. But once you get into your 40s, like perimenopause, hormonal changes, having kids, whether you have kids or not, all that really just blows the roof off. And then you're like, oh, okay, I have to surrender. I have no control over this.
Exactly. And that's why I teach like unconditional self-love, because like you can come into the Yummy Mummy and you can lose weight and weigh what you want, but like we are going to learn how to love our bodies, the way our bodies look, ourselves unconditionally, because our bodies are going to change anyways. Like we are going to age.
And like, sorry, but we have to mention the overculture that is like living in a patriarchal society that values youth, that values these things that they're impossible to hang on to.
Yeah.
So there is also that extra pressure. It's like, are you doing your 11s because it makes you feel better when you see yourself in the mirror? Or are you doing it because this lady was on the cover of whatever magazine and was photoshopped smooth, right? It's like, where is it coming from? What's the intention?
Because like you feel like you're not worthy unless you look a certain way, right? I get my nails done all the time. I freaking dye my hair. Like I do a lot of things. I'm like, this is a mirage. This is not even what I look like.
And I resent it. I actually I don't know if you resent it. I'm getting to the point where I have to start dyeing my hair. I love getting my nails done because it's become this like therapy time and it's you know, and like, okay, 2 hours and I get to take care. But I also kind of resent it. You know what I mean? I do. But if that's the one thing that makes me very happy to look down at my nails and see that they're done all the time.
If it's an easy little hit, then like, why not?
And it's all day. I'm like looking at them and like, oh, these are cute. You know, I like started going long. I was like, you know, but I do in the grand scheme of things, like when I watch my husband like get up and leave the house and like, you know, there is a sense of resentment, but you gotta do the things that feel good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just finding the line. And it's so interesting too, because you bring up like our patriarchal like society. And it's like, okay, so when I dye my hair or when I get my eyebrows done, I do feel better. But why do I feel better? I
Yeah.
feel better because I've been told, I've been literally programmed that this looks better, this looks younger, this looks, and that equals good, and that equals valuable, and that equals worthy. So it's like, even when we feel better because of these things, I think it is from that conditioning. Now, the other thing is, I do feel better when I put a little blonde in my hair and get my nails done, whatever, all the things. I do think it's because of the way that I've been socialized.
Mm.
And it's also okay for me to not want to do all the work, all the self-work, all the like mind management. Like, you know what? I look better with these eyebrows. That's my thought. Could I do a bunch of thought work and a bunch of therapy to sell myself on the way my eyebrows used to look? Yeah, I could. And I don't fucking want to. I don't feel like it. I want to do my thought work on something else right now, right? Because it's endless otherwise.
Like with my eyebrows, for example, like letting them go during the pandemic. First of all, I plucked them to death when I was 16. So it's like I've got like a gap here from a eyebrow piercing gone bad. And then this one's been overplucked. Literally, it like grew out. So it was just like, it was like learning to embrace it both when they're super wild and when they're nice and trim. And that to me is like, it's the same thing. Can I love my hands without the nails? Can I love them with the nails? And it's like adornment is, think of the birds that like show off their tail feathers, or, I mean, I don't even know if other mammals, this is something we have to research when we get off. It's like, do other mammals adorn themselves? But the other mammals do things to make themselves more attractive.
Yeah,
That's
like I don't think it's all
just
patriarchal.
humaning.
Like,
Exactly.
yes, it's biology, right?
Exactly.
Like,
we want to feel, and there's a difference between our menstruating years and our fertile years and our non-fertile years. Because again, you and I may be having a different discussion later where we DGAF more, or we start hanging on to it a little bit more. So I think there's a lot of sides to it.
Well, yeah, I said that to my friend the other day because we've been having this conversation a lot in my group of friends. And I said, like, don't quote me on this. Like, I don't know. Like, talk to me in 10 years. I might be like getting a facelift. I don't know. So again, I just want to like put the disclaimer on it that like I'm not saying what anyone should or shouldn't do. I just think it's kind of fun actually to ask the questions and like, why are we doing what we're doing? And I agreed. It's a part of it is biology. Like, I'm sure if I were living like 100,000 years ago, I would like, I don't know, get some freaking juice out of the berries and put it on my lips and like, you know, saunter over to Brian. Yeah. Or whoever it would have been at the time. Okay. So talk to us a little bit about, because you had sent me when we were scheduling this, some of the topics that we would want to talk about. And I want to dive into maintaining a sense of self as a mom, because really the mission of the Yummy Mummy is to free the moms. And I think motherhood can become a trap where that is our one and only calling, or we pour ourselves into it and then we lose ourselves. And you talked about it a little bit too, but I've noticed myself kind of grappling with my motherhood and how much of a priority it is and where motherhood lies in all the different identities that I hold. And I actually have watched myself go a little bit to the other end of the spectrum because I got so scared that if I didn't live out this calling, the calling of freeing the moms, that my kids would leave the house and I wouldn't have my stake in anything. I wouldn't have a purpose, because I've seen with some mother figures in my life that after the kids are out of the house, they are left with nothing and mental health becomes an issue. Yep. So can you speak to all of that?
Yeah. And honestly, I think it ties into the conversation we were just having before, right? It's like, what are we doing to make ourselves feel whole? And many of us do it with other things that are outside of ourselves. So whether that is the beauty approach or it's relationships or it's title and ambition, we're always trying to fill this hole within ourselves that really needs to be filled with our own love. And I'm just going to say it, and I think it's important: connection to something bigger. So it doesn't have to be God. It doesn't have to be
I didn't know what the fuck you were going to say. I was like,
and a vibrator. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I mean, sometimes when you get into like the higher power of it all, people can scoff, but higher power can mean anything. It's just, it could be nature. It could be capital N nature. It's like, it's those connections to your big S self, which is the same thing as nature.
Whether your language. Yeah.
Go into the mountains of Colorado. I live by the bay, like go see the water. Whatever those things are, I think those are the things that we need to lean into more. And it's remembering that, and this is, thank goodness for yoga for teaching this. And I don't know if you remember from the 200 hour, but like, this is the koshas, right? You are not those things. That is our greatest challenge, and our greatest struggle comes from our ignorance that we are actually all beautiful bits of stardust. And that's science, by the way. Who's the guy that like does the science stuff? He's a gentleman. He does all the narrations. The name will come to me later. I can see his face right now, but he does all the narrations and stuff. But he was talking about like the things that make the stars in the sky are the same things that created our planet, that created us. So it's when we come back to that connection and the truthfulness that we are these amazing energy beings walking around influencing each other, and that we are whole, but also deeply interconnected.
Yeah.
That's where the identity can start to fade away, and we can find something bigger than that. So we're not just the label of woman, wife, mother, yoga teacher, writer, because all of those things are temporary. I mean, womanhood, we just talked about like moving towards menopause. There's things that can start to dissolve that, right? Obviously, relationships can fall apart. And, I don't even want to say that with, children can leave. I know people that don't talk to their parents anymore. And, it's like many things can change. My mom was my identity for so long, and then she passed away. Like we change careers, we change where we live, we change, our bodies change, like all those things are changing. But there is a part of us inside of us that is ever present and ever connected to source. And that is the big S self. That's the part of us that is stardust, that is grass, that is the water, that is each other, right? And it's just trying to remember that of it all, that all the labels are just that. They're just outfits that we wear temporarily, and some we love more than anything, and some are like the cutest and you want to wear it all the time, like the motherhood one. But in the end, it's just an outfit. It's just an outer sheet.
Well, and it goes back to the non-attachment as well.
Yeah.
Because so many of us, I think, are attached to whatever the labels are so that we can feel good about ourselves, so that we can feel worthy, whole, whatever. But what you're saying, unless I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it goes back to non-attachment, because when we're so attached to the labels, I don't know, it's anxiety producing, at least for me, because a part of us knows that it's not forever, that it is impermanent. So if we can connect to God or source or the universe or nature, capital N, that's permanent. Maybe. I don't know. And now we're going to get philosophical.
I mean, it is and it isn't, right? You're right. It's like, what's the through line? What's the thing that's not changing? Capital N, nature, yes, is that ever present, right? It's the bigger universe that's holding all the changes. Lowercase n, like the trees outside, that changes. And I think, by the way, nature, I don't know if you felt this, because like growing up in LA, and then coming here I live in Northern California now, and it's much more nature filled. I'm on a mom text thread, and I'm always like, what is this species? And they're like, it's a slug. A garden slug.
Slug.
This literally just happened. And I'm like, something is on my roof. I'm like, oh, it's a bird. Like, it's like I've never left the house before, but I lived in suburbia. I lived in cements, and obviously we had very nice lawns and all that. But
no, in Santa Monica, we had a family of raccoons living in the crawl space, and we thought it was a homeless person, because obviously it wouldn't be something from nature. It wouldn't be an animal.
Yeah, that's like your brain doesn't even go there.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel the same way coming to Colorado.
And whatever, like go out to the water, go anywhere, and you can watch it indoors if you need to with the life cycle of a plant. But it's just such a wonderful reminder of seasons and cyclicality.
Yes.
Right. Pendulation is a word that they use a lot in like trauma-informed trainings. It's just like things flourish, things descend. Things flourish, things descend. And like trusting that underneath that there is something steady.
yeah, like I am safe to be in
Yes.
winter. Like that's
Yeah.
basically right. Because
Yes.
what my nervous system loves and is addicted to is spring and summer.
Yeah.
Go, go, go. More, more, more. Create, create, create. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think that also goes into like cycle syncing, which we were talking about before we began too, which like is something that I'm just now getting into at 42, like, because who knows how long my periods will stay. But it's honoring that like there's a couple weeks out of the month that my energy is lower. I don't
Yeah.
feel as attractive.
Mhm.
I'm craving different kinds of foods. I'm not craving the lighter foods. I don't have the energy to be doing like I mean, I do HIIT training all the time now because I love it. And everyone must lift weights, especially women after the age of 35. But like, I'm not going big for it, right?
Yeah.
I'm taking more walks. I'm
Yeah.
eating more meats. I'm eating a little like fattier foods. Like, I just, because my body is preparing for the cleanse that is your cycle.
Yeah.
And then after the cycle, I'm like, whoa, I'm like back again. I'm starting,
Yeah.
working your way towards feeling more
Spring.
luscious and eating more. Yeah, exactly. And you're feeling that cycle
Mm,
throughout the 28 day, 20, whatever,
whatever
21
it
to
is.
28 days. Yeah. Cycle. Women get to experience that all the time in their bodies. And so can we honor that? Because we're not meant to be robots and we're not meant to be producing the same amount every single
Mm,
day. We're not
yeah.
meant to have everything be the same all the time.
Mm,
How do
yes.
we contend with change?
Yeah. Okay, so how do we do that, Sarah? Tell us how we do maintain a sense of self as a mom. And can you tell us like also like why it's important? Like I think that we want to sell the moms on why it's important first. I know a lot of listeners already know why it's important, but I do think it's important to speak to that. Like why should we actually want to maintain a sense of self? Because if we've been brought up to think motherhood is the end all be all, like your worth is based on how good a homemaker or a mom you are, it's going to feel actually unsafe to go whatever. I mean, whatever it is, go for a walk, go for a massage, take care of yourself. So first I would love to like sell the audience on why we want to maintain a self or a sense of self as a mom and then how to actually do that.
Well, I think we've already answered that question, but let's sum it up, which is
Yeah.
everything changes all the time, that we are not in control of any of these things. So for our mental health, we have to maintain a sense of self because the family structure is going to change. Even if we do pour ourselves into our children, they will launch at some point. Maybe they don't launch till they're 27, but things will change. Children grow up, those roles shift. So, what are we left with? And as you said, a lot of the women that had only defined themselves by their role of mother and wife, many times, and a lot of the research shows, when it's like empty nest syndrome, right? People are left and lost and don't know what to do with themselves. And then it's difficult to like start anything else up. I think it's like a lighthouse in the storm that is parenting. Like there's just a part of you that's always anchored that remembers like, I'm still me. I'm also mom and I'm an amazing mom and I love this job, but I'm still me. So it's hanging on to that little piece is like your anchor within the storm, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's prioritizing our mental health. And again, we talk about there's many moms that are like, no, I want to pour myself into my children right now. This is what makes me super happy. Then fantastic. Then you do that.
But let me interrupt you there. I think
Yeah.
it's important to ask yourself why you want to pour yourself into your kids. Is it so you can earn your worth from that? Where is it coming from? Is basically my point. Is like, because, okay, so I've been Brian's like calling it my mini midlife crisis. What I've noticed is I've actually gotten a little bit sucked in. I've allowed myself to get sucked into hustle culture a little bit and overworking. And I actually wasn't overworking in terms of the hours I was putting in, but I was overthinking about work and wasn't present with my kids. I caught myself very quickly because mental health is really important to me. And so I have lots of things in place that will catch it before it gets off the rails. But my point is, I was overworking and I could have sold myself on like, yeah, but I want to do that. Yeah, I want to pour myself into that because I want to free the moms. And that is true. But part of the reason I was hustling was because I wanted to earn my worth, because I got this program from such an early age that earning money and making a business and achieving essentially equals you are good. And so now I have to be really clear about my why. No, my why for this business and for the Yummy Mummy is to free the moms and to also be a free mom. So
Mm.
I got stuck in the trap of hustle culture, and I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I was doing it to earn my worth. And so this is the analogy I want to make for motherhood. Are you doing it because you genuinely want to and it's fun for you? Or are you doing it because you have to prove something? You have to get your value. Because if it's the latter, you are going to burn out. You are going to be so exhausted and it's not going to end well.
And we can't control our kids and we can't control the world that we're putting them into. And there's just so many factors. And it really is, it's for lack of a better word. And I mean this in the kindest of ways. It becomes crazy making. And that goes back to that, the oars or the wings, right? If you have one wing going all the time and it's productivity, 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 you're going in circles and you're going to drill yourself right into the ground doing that.
Mm-hmm.
In
Yeah.
time, and maybe
In
not
time.
right now.
Yeah, in
But if
time.
it's purpose driven, if it's coming into, it's both, I enjoy doing the work of it and there's the greater purpose and the freedom of it, then you
Yes.
have that second wing and then you can soar and then you can really, and it's going to change, right? There's different periods where, I mean, none of it's black and white. There's going to be periods where we do need to be much more productivity driven, especially like in different stages of our life, but as different stages of our kids' lives, where other times we can be a little looser. It happens throughout the day. These are the seasons and the cycles that you want to become more aware of. But to be going 150% all the time is unsustainable for anybody, including men, which, yes, the system has been built for men. Much of the medical research has been done on men. Only until the 1990s did we actually start requiring that women be a part of medical research. Okay. So it's like a lot of the stuff that we learn and we know and the way that we live, we're operating on a 24-hour testosterone cycle, which is a male cycle, which is not sustainable for women. So it's really starting to embrace and come back to the woman of it all, the femininity of it all. And like, obviously there's people who don't identify as either gender. You have to find your own cycle within there. But you see the cycles happening outside of us. Can we lean into those? Can we lean into the ones happening within us? You see them happening in your kids. I know you see it with your kids. Like, I'm like, okay, it's a grumpy day today. Okay, it's a more uplifting day today. And really molding ourselves so we're more like water, forming with the environment, shifting and creating the space that we need, as opposed to being this like bulldozer that's just barreling forward, which eventually becomes exhausting. Maybe not now, maybe not in 10 years, maybe not in 20, but eventually can really wear on our mental health.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you did answer it. I want to get a little more tactical if we can. I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. I think your answer about the how, like how do we maintain our sense of self as a mom or fill in any other role really, is to have a spiritual practice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what you were talking about, but let's drill down a little bit more.
Yeah. So it's connection. Connection is the answer. Connection is the answer. And yoga, the word yoga means connection, right? There is capital Y yoga, which is the philosophy, which has led to the texts and then led to the poses that we know of. But the lowercase y in the Sanskrit language, this is the cool thing about Sanskrit. It's that one word will mean many different meanings. So it's not like English where we have a different word for everything. It's one word that has tons of different meanings. So it's like one word that encompasses all these different principles. And all of these things, yoga means a mathematical sum, an astrological conjunction. It sometimes represents a union, like marriage between people. It's a coming together. So all those things, when you look at them from a macro, it's connection. That's yoga.
I love that.
So I think the answer is connection. Connection to self, connection to other, community is essential. This is not about going and getting a massage. That's wonderful if you have the time and space for it. These are the daily things that you need to do to connect to yourself, to connect to other, and to connect to something higher, to connect to universe. And that could be anything. It's so personal, right? Like, sure, you can meditate in the morning, and sure, you can like do a movement class and a yoga class and go have a glass of wine with your girlfriends at the end of the night. That nails all three. But maybe for you, it's like going out and gardening. Maybe it's gardening in groups. Maybe it's being with the family. Maybe that's the connection to other. But
Yeah.
I think it's really tackling those three areas and just letting big C connection be. I don't know why we keep capitalizing. I feel like, you remember LA Story when she's like, my name is Sandy, big S-A-N, big D. Do you remember? E.
No, I
Sarah
don't remember
Jessica
that.
Parker. It's like
Oh my God,
classic,
this is
classic.
hilarious.
Yeah. But it is, it's like connection, right? Like that's, I think, the answer to everything. And everyone's going to have to answer that for themselves.
Yes.
So is it a massage? Maybe. Is
Mhm.
it 5 extra minutes in the shower? Maybe. Is it preparing your food without some kid coming in and asking you 100 questions? I don't know, right? That's what you
Yeah.
have to ask yourself. Connect
So
to yourself,
I think it would be
to
fun.
other, to
Yeah.
God.
Yes, I love that. So well put. I always like to give them, the audience, a little takeaway. And so I think that would be a really fun takeaway or question to answer now. Don't answer it later. Don't put it on your to-do list. So what is one way you could connect? I would say pick one of the three. Like
Yeah.
just pick one. I like self, since we're talking about how to maintain the sense of self, which again, I get why we have to do with community, friends, whatever, family, and higher power. But I think one way to create a takeaway is, how could you connect to yourself every single day for 2 minutes or 5 minutes? And can it be something that you like? Something that you like doing? Because for me, I know I have put myself in little boxes on like what I should be doing. Like, oh, I should be like meditating, or I should be like doing this breath work or whatever. And it's like, what do I like doing that makes me feel connected to me? And then I do that. Like, I like journaling. That just works for me. There's other things I like doing too. I could go on and on. Really good at taking care of myself. But my point is, find something that you like that's easy, because I think we can tend to like, okay, well, that means I have to do like an hour of meditation, and then I have to do an hour on the spin bike, and then like, at least that's my brain just goes all or nothing is
Yep.
right. And so it's like the land of it in both. So what is one thing you can do to connect to yourself on a daily basis, or even every other day? Because again, because my brain, and I know this audience, we go to all or nothing. So we're like, okay, I'm going to do this thing for 5 minutes a day. And then we forget to do it. And then we're like, oh, never mind.
Well, can I offer something with that real quick? Because here,
Please.
we talk about in my mom groups, we have a whole day where we talk about intentional living. And I think the key to intentional living, and at least what I get from the yogic practices, and like I think Ayurveda is really good at this, is you don't need to change anything or add anything. And I guarantee you're already doing something.
Yes.
I guarantee you there's at least one thing you're doing during the day that helps you connect to yourself. And if that's the like getting up and placing your feet on the ground and taking 5 breaths, or washing your face, or taking sips of your tea while it's hot, only you know the answer to that. But you don't need to add anything in.
Yes. Okay.
You don't need to
Agreed.
add anything in, right?
Yeah.
So it's not something that you have to create.
Yeah.
It's something that's already there, and it's making that moment sacred.
Yeah. So eloquent. I love it. So easy. See, it makes it easier.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also like we're already succeeding, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
100%. I love that. Okay. Any final thoughts that you want to leave the people with? That's number 1. And then number 2, tell us how we can find you, and go buy her book, you guys, and just tell us all the things.
Yeah. I mean, I think the serenity prayer is probably the thing that like we all need to practice all the time. Any human being walking on this planet, which is God or universe, whatever. You don't even, someone, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, which is usually having to do with us, and the wisdom to know the difference. Accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. That's everything you work with. That's the plane you work with, Laura. And the wisdom to know the difference. And I think you work with both, really, because it's
Totally.
like, what do you control and what can you let go of? And just try that on. Just see how that feels. It's like your neighbor's playing super loud music at 10 p.m. cannot control, but like you can put earplugs in, or your husband is like watching stuff on on his tablet very late. You can wear an eye mask. You can go into another room. So those are obviously very benign examples, but you cannot change how your child is being treated at school. You can change how you then treat them at home. You can potentially change the school setting if you need to, but you can also change the way that you're raising them within that. It's really coming down to what's in my lane, and it's just such a relief too.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Okay. How do we find you?
I'm probably most active on IG. I do have a parenting community over at Microsoft Teams called Let's Get Real Parenting. Teams is moving out of the work and school space and moving in towards more community space. So they tapped me to bring my community over there. So that's been fun. It's just like a place to come and chat.
Cool.
And then, you can always email me through my website.
Tell us what your IG is and tell us what your website is.
Everything is Sarah Ezrin Yoga. SarahEzrin Yoga.
I love it. And your book.
My book is available anywhere books are sold. And you get the Audible. It's me reading it. So you get to hear my voice.
That's so fun. I love when the author reads it, and I kind of hate it when the author doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was I could literally keep talking. I have so many notes that I didn't even get to. So maybe you'll have to come back, but I could have just continued to talk to you for like 2 hours. So thank you. I love you guys. Have the best week ever. Remember to go to lauraconley.com/summer if you want to join the challenge.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, everybody who's listening. Thank you.
Bye. Hey, if you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, I would love it if you leave a rate, review, and a subscribe on whatever you're listening to this podcast in. Pretty pleased with a cherry on top. It would help me so much, and it would help all the other mamas out there hear this message. Thank you in advance. I really appreciate it. And you have to come check out the Yummy Mummy experience. It's my proven lose weight for the last time group coaching and course. Head to lauraconley.com and just click work with me. Other than that, you guys, I would love to give you a free gift. If you want your free listener only gift, go to lauraconley.com/gift. And from there, you will get your free best ever weight loss hack. So cool. The last thing I want to tell you, you guys, is I do have a free Facebook group. It's called, you guessed it, the Yummy Mummy. Lose weight for the last time, end body drama, and get food freedom. You can just search that on Facebook, or again, you can head to the show notes and you'll find the link there. All right, you guys, have the best day ever.